What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod. We're giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, and I'm sitting with my hat down, crosstown, living like a rock star. Dave's about to spend money on his brand new guitar. What's going on, man?
What an opportunistic ploy by Billy Cyrus, but it was successful. Good for him and good for Lil Nas X. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. That song was everywhere this weekend. Memes, Everything about it was amazing. Yeah, just incredible. Billy Ray Cyrus, what a guy. And, if you find yourself thinking, man, Billy Ray Cyrus jumping on a track with Lil Nas X, well, you're probably a week late to the discussion. You should go back and listen to our video on that. You can get all these videos by subscribing to our YouTube channel or going to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and catching the pod any way you can. And once you listen, give us that 5-star rating and review and share us with friends. We appreciate it. We got lots to talk about today. Game of Thrones, back after a year off, so we got to preview that. We also had the return of Killing Eve, a couple of albums, and Zachary Levi, our swole-grown son, in Shazam. Yeah, he was yoked for that. Why don't we start off today with BLACKPINK, Kill This Love, their second EP. Jisoo, Jenny, is it Rose or Rose and Lisa?
Not sure. I'm gonna say Rose because it sounds better.
Sounds a lot better. Yeah, the all-female K-pop group. Kind of, we did a breakout when BTS dropped their most recent album back a couple months ago about K-pop, and we talked about BLACKPINK as one of the bands that was kind of like a manufactured band from the studios out there to try to create these hip hop or these pop groups that can gain some traction here in the United States. And BLACKPINK is one of the ones that's been pretty successful so far. If you want to listen to that video, you can check that out somewhere on our YouTube page. Search Nostalgia K-pop. This EP, Kill This Love, man, I had some mixed feelings on this. On the one hand, I think that there's some really catchy and some really fun parts of it. And on the other hand, I felt myself feeling like, man, this is like the most generic Zed, Tiesto, Calvin Harris album with some really, really good sounding Korean pop singers over this. What did you think of Kill This Love by BLACKPINK?
Yeah, so for me, I ran back their BLACKPINK In Your Area album that came out in December 1st before I went to this EP. And that album really just captures all these other EPs and singles they had put out over the past year and a half or so.
Yep.
And I really liked that album. It was only 30 minutes long. I thought there was a lot of cool singles on there and a lot of catchy songs. And then going into Kill This Love, which is half as long, and one of the songs is a remix. I was also not as enthused just because I was like, I just listened to all these bangers from that album, and now this one. I mean, I heard them so literally back to back. I don't know if I can really speak to how much growth there was. It kind of blends together, but yeah, apart from the title track, not much of it stood out to me. But when I'm looking at them as a whole, I still think there's a lot to like and see for future success. But yeah, I was a little underwhelmed.
Yeah, I actually was listening to their Arena Tour 2018 album that was on Spotify a little bit, just to kind of get a sense. They do some really great covers of songs. Actually, one of them was a Christmas song that they were covering. I think it was Last Christmas or something like that, which I was like, I'm listening to a Christmas song covered by K-pop people on April 8th. So it was a weird moment for me during my days in general, but there is a lot more to them, especially hearing them live was pretty cool. And I feel like this album was almost like veering too much into American pop, trying to be the most generic of generic American pop rather than adding, really their own twist outside of speaking a foreign language on it. I mean, literally listening to the first song on here, which is, I believe, the title track. Yeah, Kill This Love, which they actually released a music video for and has, I think, last time I checked, over 130 million views today, which is crazy. So they just dropped it, I think, last week.
It's the fastest music video to 100 million views in YouTube history under 3 days. and it was the most watched in 24 hours, 56.7 million, which beat Thank You Next. So the Blinks, their stands, their fan army are definitely powerful if they can set all these brand new streaming records for a group that is only just really getting like big in the West, you know?
Yeah. But listening to that song, I was like, man, I feel like I would hear this on like a side stage at Izu on like a Saturday afternoon. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I was just like, not what I expected to hear from this group. And I think this just kind of speaks to them trying to find what's going to break them through here in American pop.
Yep.
I did think the one song that stood out to me was Kick It, which I just something about it stood out. I think they went a little bit more like toned down on that song, which I liked, like stripping it back a bit. But otherwise, yeah, I don't think there's too much notable here. But I think this is leading up to an album release sometime soon, I have to imagine.
Yeah, that's what the talk is. And I'm, again, because that first album in December was just a collection of previously released songs. So to hear something that's like a full length album from them is probably really exciting for a lot of their fans. But, you know, Kill This Love, again, getting all this, setting all these YouTube records. I mean, it's a pretty big, bombastic song. A lot of their videos are like that too, really bouncy. But I think you're right. I mean, trying to grasp Western audiences and try and catch on, just be more mainstream. Sounds like it's what they're doing, because I mean, they've already mixed Korean and Japanese. There's a fair amount of English even on their older songs already. But I mean, there's some clear hip hop influence, especially from, you know, there's some corny hip hop flows on some of their songs, which is, you know where that's coming from. But considering Do, which the remix is on this EP, that original song from like a year ago, that's the most watched K-pop video ever. It's like 747 million views. It's better than anything BTS has ever done in terms of views. That song, like, it's a pretty like bad hook. That's the title, obviously. You heard the remix. So I think Kill This Love's like a step up in that regard in terms of making these like big, like poppy singles. But there's still a lot of room to grow, and we'll see, because YG Entertainment, they're like managed their label. There's been some hot water recently with some controversy with taxes, and also one of their artists they had dropped one of their artists for recording sexual acts without permission. Obviously, bad stuff going on. So, but it seems like YG is pushing BLACKPINK as their like premier act. So I'm curious to see, like BTS, just how big K-pop can really get here in the West in terms of like mainstream Billboard Hot 100 music. So we'll be seeing after that album's coming soon.
Someone that's huge is Khalid. His debut album, American Teenager, was I guess a surprise smash hit. American Teen, sorry. And Dave, do you know where he currently ranks on the Spotify monthly most played artists?
4th, 47 million monthly listeners. Crazy.
Do you know who's ahead of him?
I did. Ariana Grande's one.
Yes.
Not Drake.
No.
Oh, I forget. Just tell me. I don't remember.
J Balvin and Post Malone.
Oh, it's Post Malone. Yeah, I was going to guess J Balvin. That makes a lot of sense, though. But me, it was going to make sense too. Wow. Post Malone, it's crazy that he's that high.
Yeah, and he's right ahead of Marshmello, Selena Gomez, Calvin Harris, Drake, Sway Lee, and Smith. That's the top 10. Crazy that he is only his second album. He's already in that stratosphere. I mean, Post Malone also a new artist. The fact that he's number 3 is insane. But yeah, Sway Lee, number 9.
Sunflower got him all the way up to number 9. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Holy
These
shit.
streaming numbers, man.
Wow. He's big.
Yeah,
he's crazy big. He got really big, really fast. It's nuts, Khalid.
Yeah, and if I remember, I can't remember if we talked about American Teen, but after listening to the album, I think he's he has an interesting voice, and like he's very vibey. Like he's the kind of guy you listen to. He has kind of like these lo-fi tunes behind him, and has this interesting inflection in the way he sings, and it all kind of flows together to make this really just nice like song to listen to, I feel like. And I felt like Free Spirit was a lot more the same, but where American Teen I think really stood out and grabbed people, especially younger people, is that he was speaking about an experience that I think a lot of people related to, whereas Free Spirit it's a little bit harder to access, and I think it has a lot of the difficulties that someone that blows up quickly has when they write a second album, in terms of um, they their material and their topics become a little bit less, I don't know, general. It's not as easy for people to connect with what they're talking about. I mean, it's a lot of being lonely, feeling like you can't trust people on this album, and that makes it a little bit tougher of a listen. At least I didn't find it as enjoyable, but I still think there's a lot to like on here. What was your take on Free Spirit?
Yeah, so I mean, we really first talked about Khalid back on that Sun City EP that came out in October, and American Teen, that EP, and now the second album. In that whole time, obviously, as we mentioned, he's a huge artist really quick. I mean, he's only just now 21 years old. He's only just starting his first arena tour. That's how quick he's gotten this big. But his biggest charting songs are actually all like features. East Side, the Benny Blanco Halsey joint, 1-800, the Logic song, Lovely, the Billie Eilish Lucy, and then Love Lies with Normani. Those are like his biggest hits. And then we have Location, Young, Dumb, and Broke, and Now Talk, right? Mm-hmm. So it's weird because I feel like he's actually better as a guest, like a less is more artist, because all of his projects so far for me, I just feel like I kind of fall into them, and then I just kind of get lost, because I think when he uses these moody beats and he has these kind of sleepy vocals, his voice doesn't like rise above them to like stand out enough. Like on this album, towards the end, like on that song 21, he actually changes his delivery for the first time in several tracks, and like actually like jump started my brain again. But I feel like too many times on sequences on his projects, I just kind of slip in and out because it just gets way too moody. So I'm kind of on the camp now that I think he's a less is more artist, and perhaps a little overrated. Not saying he's bad, I just think he's like Sam Smith. He's not Frank Ocean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Frank Ocean is like, I don't know, very inventive in his sound, though, where I don't think you could ever say that about Khalid. He seems to be very, moody is the right word. I actually wrote down that it's just mood music throughout. And I think he has this like melancholy to his voice, and that, again, blends together so well with some of these songs. It almost feels indistinguishable at points, in terms of where his voice ends and the background beat that he's working with kind of goes together. But there were a few songs that stood out to me I thought were pretty interesting. I really liked the song with John Mayer, Out of My Head. I thought that song kind of stood out. It's kind of groovy, a little bit like disco-y, with like the John Mayer soft rock touch that is like made for radio. But then you also got Paradise, which I really liked the funky reverberate guitar on that. He added a little spin to Alive, which has like the island drums in the background with it. And of course, Talk, I think, is the clear standout from this. And that song is just a clear bop. Shout out Disclosure. Just they keep killing it. Can't wait for their next album. So I think there's a lot to like on here, but 17 songs just seems like way too much.
Yeah, I agree. I also really liked Right Back, similar to Talk, just this really bouncy, poppy beat that he can easily rock on. This kind of, he's talented enough to make these certified pop hits from that. But I think when he tries to get more introspective, and at least right now, the production choices, the vocal choices just kind of lose me. But when he has these more upbeat songs like Talk and Right Back, I'm right there. I think those songs are awesome.
Yeah, he also worked with Portugal the Man's producer on a couple of these songs, which I think is an interesting choice, because I could hear a lot of that influence on here, for sure. Any last thoughts before we move on from Free Spirit?
Yeah, I'm just curious to see the choices to come, because I mean, only second album, he's this massive artist, 5 Grammy noms already, 21 years old. What's next? Because is he going to continue to devolve in this introspective stuff, or is he going to see the success of songs like Talk and just and all his collaborations and just continue to just be this mainstream pop force? I could see either direction, so I'm just curious to see what happens next. But we'll be hearing from him, no doubt about that.
Yeah, he's a mammoth artist right now. We'll see if he keeps it up. A show I think everybody was I don't know about worried about, but interested to see if it could really keep going is Killing Eve season 2. So season 1 we talked about on our year-end lists. I believe it was like number 2 or number 1 for both of us.
It was 2 for me.
Yeah, so I think it was number 3 for me then. Killing Eve is a really interesting show. You know, you have Sandra Oh established playing Eve, Jodie Comer playing Villanelle, and it really captured, I think, the zeitgeist or the interest of a lot of people at the time, because it really balances humor with this drama and this story about these two people. You know, this Villanelle, this murderous hit woman from Russia, and Eve, this American transplanted to London and who's trying to figure her out, and just kind of how they become obsessed with each other. And it really ended on this note. And of course, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who created the show, created Fleabag, just one of the premier showrunners right now, who is at the helm. Then she leaves, and season 2 kind of picks up right where season 1 left off, and we're like, is this new showrunner going to be able to keep things going? Is this going to be Emerald Fennell's like picking up right where things left off and seamless, or is there going to be some bumps? And I think episode 1 kind of had a little bit of both. But give me your thoughts on Killing Eve season 1, and then what you thought of the premiere.
To reiterate past pods, I love season 1. Obviously, I think it really stood out for its snappy, witty dialogue, a lot of which we can DNA of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, of course, but 2 perfectly cast characters. But the show, the original conceit of it being a cat and mouse thriller, is still present, but it's really about their relationship as characters, and as you mentioned, obsession, and it achieves way more in season 1 than you ever expect it to. You never really think it's going to even attempt to go there, but I was really blown away by it. And it's funny because most people that watched the show felt that way as well. The audience literally doubled between the premiere and the finale, and it was just on BBC America last year. Now AMC is simulcasting it also on AMC Prime. So the Walking Dead audience, the Better Call Saul audience, we're going to get more eyeballs on Killing Eve, and it was obviously just on Hulu past season 1. So a true word of mouth hit, which I think, again, is very well deserved because it's such a unique show. And this season 2, as you mentioned, maybe some of it was concern trolling, but we did just talk about this with Barry. It's like when you have this perfect season, how do you keep this going, especially when the conceit is something that doesn't sound sustainable with that cat and mouse thriller, the hunter be hunted kind of thing. And I think season 2, despite taking place 30 seconds later, the premiere, I think it just kind of like resets us, at least for the moment. It's tough to really glean where we're actually going from here, but it does sound like Villanelle and Sandra are still going to be circling each other, at least for now. So, but like, season 1 established the stuff with Constantine and the 12. There's some overarching questions that they didn't even bother answering for now, so they'll be there. But I think right now it's still just about the dialogue, the performances, the relationship between the 2 leads, the fashion. That's still all present. So all the main ingredients of season 1 are still here, at least in episode 1. So I was pleased with the premiere. What about you?
Yeah, no, I thought the premiere was good. I do think there were some bumps, mostly in like how Villanelle kind of got from being stabbed to the hospital, and I think just kind of like along the way, some of it was a little unrealistic. Some of it, I don't know if it made total sense, but I think what's shown through was just her personality, and I think that's the most encouraging part about all of it, is that Emerald Fennell seems to really have a grasp on who these characters are. Villanelle is at one point childish and like a 7-year-old in a 28-year-old's body, and at the other time is this stone cold killer who will snap a child's neck on a bed. So it's a difficult character, I think, to totally get the tone right for. And that part seems seamless to me. I think that it's really interesting to see how Sandra Oh was in this episode. She got a lot to work with in terms of like the ups and downs of her character after stabbing Villanelle and kind of making sense of that. And I thought she was fantastic. And the funny parts are still there, whether it's Sandra Oh saying, I think I killed her, and then the person's proposing to his girlfriend in front of her, or Jodie Comer when she's saying, I am very funny, but with like the most deadpan face you've ever seen. Like it's perfect. Like that, I love those moments of the show. It's so that even if there were some bumps, I think that there's enough here to feel really optimistic about the show moving forward.
Yeah, I'm with it. It's a show I like to evangelize for, because despite its exponential growth throughout season 1, it's still a show that was really a critic's recommendation at the end of the day. It wasn't a super populous show. So I really hope this AMC bump that they're giving works out, because I mean, they already expressed confidence in the show renewing it before season 1 started, but now we'll see how big the show can get. But I think it has a great chance, because again, Sandra Oh is a recognizable face on American television, very popular, very well liked, and Jodie Comer's performance is just so undeniable that I really hope this show can get super big, because I think it deserves it. It's that unique, it's that successful.
Yeah, and I think as long as they have Owen and Comer doing it, basing it around their relationship makes sense. I could see Comer not wanting to do this forever, if only because I think she's going to be getting a lot bigger opportunities moving forward. But Sandra Oh seems like she could be a lasting piece if this ends up being a series that goes on for a couple more seasons. Why don't we move on to Shazam, though? Because, man, we have reviewed 5 DC movies.
We reviewed all the DCEU movies except for Man of Steel, which came out before we did the pod.
So at this point, it's Wonder Woman, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, Aquaman,
Suicide Squad.
Which I actually, I found myself watching Suicide Squad on TV the other day, and it got to the point, it just was on. I was like, let me give it a watch. And it got to the point where, what's his name? Like the guy who climbs things, or the knock guy or whatever, tries to get away, and Colonel Rick Flag blows his head off or whatever. And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm out. Can't watch this anymore. Just not for me. What's that guy's name? I can't remember. I'm gonna look it up.
He's played by Adam Beach. Totally thankless part. Ripcord?
Yes, something like that. Right? I'm gonna look it up. But anyways, Shazam. David Sandberg from Annabelle Creation, Lights Out, at the helm here. Got Zachary Levi, like we talked about earlier, looking swole in that Shazam suit. I wasn't so sure about this. When the trailers first came out, I think we were a little bit like, this isn't looking so great. And then closer and closer we got, the tone seemed to be a little better and better. And then the 91% does. Do you think this movie deserves to be that high?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was in by the first trailer. I thought it looked pretty cool. Definitely inspired, or reminds you of Ant-Man, even Little Guardians of the Galaxy, just in terms of the humor and the tone, the levity of it. But I think this movie deserves universal acclaim, because I think it's pretty undeniably successful and achieves the goals it sets out. So thus it's getting all these positive reviews. Yeah, no, I really liked it, and I think it's earning all this positive buzz for sure.
Mm-hmm. It was Slipknot, by the way.
It's whatever, Yeah.
Anyways, I was, I think, a little bit worried, only because, one, Zachary Levi as a leading man, I wasn't totally sold on for a movie this size. But also, you had him being so goofy in the trailer, and Shazam being a superhero that I don't think many people are familiar with. I wasn't sure if this was going to be something where, if this doesn't come out and is really, really good, if it's just going to completely flop. And it was really good. And I think the part that I like most about it is similar to Wonder Woman and kind of some of the other things I think they've been trying to do, even Aquaman to an extent, is the first part of these movies, before they get to the part where it's like punching each other in the face, seems like they all try something, which you got to give them credit for that. And I think, like you said, this one had a very like Guardians, just kind of like goofing around, having fun type vibe to it. And the more that they focused on what it meant for Billy Baston to be like exploring what it means to be a superhero when you're actually like 14 years old inside this man's body, was a lot more interesting than like what's the name, Savannah's like
Dr. Shavannah.
Yeah, Dr. Shavannah and the seven deadly sins kind of hanging out. That was a bit of a tough hang at times for me. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think ultimately this is probably one of the best, if not the best, third act the DCU's had. Because as you mentioned, a lot of times,
I agree.
Even the best of superhero movies like Black Panther, like a lot of times the third act and Wonder Woman has to devolve into some kind of punching, some kind of heavy CGI scene. And yes, we had that with Seven Deadly Sins, but I think there's enough payoff in that third act, specifically when all the other siblings, the foster siblings, all get Shazam powers of their own. I think that really works. But throughout the first two acts, especially, the movie is just really well paced and sets up payoffs. It's funny. I think it just really executes on its premise, and it's just really sharp, you know. And Wonder Woman, its first two acts, it's this great period piece. It's also great message about female empowerment, and Wonder Woman's fantastic in the beginning as well. But Shazam is super, super meta, you know, and referencing that like Batman and Superman exist in this universe, but it's almost like they don't, because nothing they did previously has any effect on Shazam at all. I think that's kind of been the takeaway in general about where they've been going in terms of Aquaman and now Shazam, and next year with Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn film. So having Shazam just kind of exist on its own and on its own terms, I think was a fantastic idea. Like, we don't have to, like think about the cameo, right? Like the cameo at the end, the stinger scene. You have Superman there, obviously headless, because this is DCU. They don't get to actually pull in their caps and have Chris Evans cameo, right? Henry Cavill isn't in this cameo, but it doesn't really matter, right? Because Shazam was just cool for being Shazam. And that's kind of what I like the most about it. It's just that it executes everything it sets out to do on its own. It's honestly a really earnest, really fun movie. So, I mean, I had a great time with it and didn't mind some of the weak points, like the villain, like the end, in a sense.
Yeah, I also I agree with pretty much everything you said, and I think it had a really sweet story at the center of it, which something like Aquaman, for example, very superhero type story where he's an orphan trying to like find his mom and figure all that out, and it's just
save his kingdom.
Save his kingdom. Which I actually think the third act of that, at least the fight scenes, that looked really cool being underwater. So
yep.
I didn't hate that one so much, but I just really liked how Billy in this is still like so drawn to like be with his mom, but then just has that like real talk conversation with her and is like, okay, well, now I'm ready to just go be Shazam. Like, I thought that was handled really well. The pacing at times I didn't like it felt a little too slow at times and moving a little too quickly at times, but overall this is a major win for DC. By far the most enjoyable DC film I think I've watched. I just had a really good time from start to finish pretty much with this. Even when it did kind of devolve into punching, like you still had Darla's like grown up Shazam character with a lot of like one liners and funny parts added into it. Especially liked when she like saves Santa. It's like, oh, it's really you, and then like starts talking. He's like, what the hell? And that Santa Claus, man, like the most Philly Santa Claus of all time, for sure. There was just a lot to like. What were some standout moments or scenes for you?
Yeah, well, honestly, I think Jack Grazer, who plays Freddy, really brings the movie together, because it's his relationship with Zach, with adult Shazam, right? Yeah. Like, I think that's like the winning formula, that keeps the movie going. I think what's his name, Alex Asher, young Billy. He's okay. I think he's a bit of a one-up performance, but Jack and Zach, their relationship and then chemistry, in the roles, I think really needed to work for the movie to be as successful and have the funny bits land. That needed to work, and it did. And right from the get-go, when Freddy just again gets very meta, then he starts talking about social media and all the names they start giving Shazam and all these things. It's really funny, but it's also, again, like I said, very sharp. It's witty humor, and having that training montage that we see a bit of in the trailer, I think that's really well done, because it plays into social media. interesting choice. In the trailer, they used Kendrick Lamar's "Humble" for the song, but in the movie, it's actually Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now." I'm wondering if that was a late change, given the Bohemian Rhapsody "Queen Has Never Been Hotter" buzz. You know, who knows? But yeah, I think really, and actually, even backing up even further, the way they set up Dr. Shyvana and the wizard Shazam, but the Gemma Hanchu plays, I actually thought that worked well. It was effective enough for villain motivation, and also a cool prologue where, this is a PG-13 film, but I mean, there's still some fairly dark moments for a movie that also has plenty of laughs. So yeah, I really think the first two acts are pretty tight. And like Mark Strong, I've always liked Mark Strong as a performer, even though he's relatively typecast as a villain apart from like the Kingsman movies. But the Doctor, he was good enough. It's kind of like the Ant-Man 2 villain, the Ghost, like did what it needed to do, didn't really get in the way, but didn't really lighten things up. I thought the Seven Deadly Sins in particular were just kind of annoying just because it's hard to tell them apart. Like I wasn't really sure who most of them were besides the obvious ones, like, oh, Gluttony's the big fat guy. I got that one, Yeah. But overall, I think most of the first two acts are really sharp, really tight. So that's a strength. I think those were most of the rewatchable scenes would be as well. What about you? What stood out to you?
No, the training montage I think was an obvious high note, and I also really like how they basically made this like modern day Big, where it's like he's like just the fact that he becomes a superhero and like he's finally like, oh yeah, like okay, I'm an adult man in this body. He's like, oh, let's go try to buy beer, and like that whole sequence of them in the convenience store, I thought was,
you don't have a fake ID.
Yeah, man, I am the ID. Like, so good. I'd like to buy your finest beer, please. Okay, just so good. And also just his reaction when he finds out that he's bulletproof, and he's like,
so good.
Yeah, just perfect. And Zachary Levi, I mean, I can't say enough about. He was perfectly cast for this, which I never would have expected. But I guess it's like similar to I don't know, like Chris Pratt. Like I never would have expected him to be a star like this. But he really brought that like childish air to the character that you needed. Like you couldn't have put like Chris Pine or Chris Evans or even like Hemsworth. I think would have been difficult to see, but Levi had just this like innocence to him that I think would have been really good. I guess maybe Hemsworth could have brought that because I think Thor has an innocence to him but overall, just he was fantastic. One of the scenes really stood out. Yeah, the Seven Deadly Sins, like I said, tough hanging times. I agree. It was hard to tell them apart, and they actually, I think, even kind of nodded at this when Zachary Levi's like, he's like, I thought she's gonna be way, way better. Like it was, I forgot what that one is, like seduction or whatever.
Lust, maybe.
Yeah, Lust. I thought she's gonna be way more attractive than it was.
Right.
Like such a good call out. And yeah, I also really did like the part at the end when the family gets the powers. Like I thought that was a cool like twist to all of it and how they kind of brought them in together. And I also think that gives a lot of opportunity for like the future films, which I mean, do we want to talk about the post-credit scene with the evil caterpillar?
What's it called? Mind. Mr. Mind is what he's called. Getting weird, man. I don't care. Go for it, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, before we get to the future, I saw this criticism going around. Some people didn't mind it. Some people did point it out, though. So Asher Angel, when he plays normal Billy, pretty stoic, maybe a little wise beyond his years, young teen, right, or preteen, right? It's a more measured performance, whereas Jack Grazer's Freddy is a more energetic performance, right? But then when Billy Shazams into Zachary Levi, it almost seemed like he got more childish, almost more immature. But then when we go back to Asher, this Billy, we don't get that anymore. Some people thought that they just didn't sync up enough. I didn't notice it watching the movie. Thinking about it, I guess it makes sense in times, but I also feel like if you get to become this ridiculously invincible adult, all of a sudden, yeah, maybe your personality changes a bit. I don't know. It didn't bother me, but did you notice that?
I think I mean, it was something I think I thought about for 1 second, but then I rationalized it by if I was unhappy 14-year-old kid, and then I had the ability to shoot lightning out of my hands, and I was all of a sudden making money and had all these opportunities, that I would probably be a lot happier in that sense. So
Right.
I think like his childishness and like that wonder it makes sense when you really think about it. But I guess a fair criticism, but man, you're really like picking nits there. I feel like
It doesn't break the movie or anything. Just an observation people have.
What do you want to see from a future Shazam movie?
Well, the thing is, I don't know how soon we're getting a future Shazam movie, just the way DC's moving these days. Like, Aquaman 2 immediately greenlit the success of Aquaman. Again, Aquaman made $1.1 billion, the biggest DC movie ever, bigger than any of the Nolan movies, right? Mm-hmm. But Aquaman 2 is coming out December 2022, 4 years after the first Aquaman. They kind of already have their slate. So it's like we got Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 1984 for next year, 2020. 2021, we have The Batman for Matt Reeves, and then The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn Suicide Squad sequel. That's 2021. The Flash is nebulously slated for 2021 right now. We know there's talk about the script, and perhaps Ezra Miller would leave the role because he wants to do it darker than DC wants to do. And I think DC ultimately needs to keep this forward momentum going. And, you know, you can replace Ezra Miller. I don't think that's a deal breaker by any stretch. But either way, that's you know, that's nebulous. And then 2022, we have one movie at the end of the year. Man of Steel sequel, no sign of that. Blue Beetle was recently talked about. No date, no information. So when would Shazam 2 come out? Maybe 2022? Early 2022? I guess that's possible. The thing about this was a relatively cheap superhero movie. It was like under $100 million for the budget. It was Logan money, a little more than Deadpool. So the fact that it had a modest opening weekend didn't really matter because it doesn't have a high bar to be a financial success. So less effects, make it faster. Still seems like it's far away, which I don't know. But maybe you want to capitalize on the momentum. Who can say? But yeah, I think keeping the cast of the kids with their powers, I think you got to keep that involved, at least to a certain extent. Maybe have them in bit roles because we don't really recognize any of those actors. But with Mr. Mind, it sounds, I mean, he's like one of the big Shazam nemesis. I mean, I feel like we can go in any direction. But I mean, do you have any thoughts on where you'd want to go? Because this was more of a traditional origin of sorts. We had fish out of water. We had a lot of common tropes we see in hero stories. And now for this sequel, there's a lot of potential. So what would you want to see?
Well, in terms of when the next Shazam movie will come out, if they want to use the kids still, they need to do it fairly soon because those kids aren't going to look like they do in the next 2 years. However, there was talk when we first talked about the DC movie verse back, I think, in 2016. Yeah, must have been 2016. Of a Black Adam movie. And he's with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I'm sure at that point they'll probably pull some of these characters back in. Maybe not all of them. But I could definitely see Asher and Glazer, as well as Levy and Adam Brody. Out of all those like grown up Shazams, Adam Brody's probably the only recognizable one outside of Zachary Levi, obviously. So I could see them kind of teaming up and doing something. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I don't really have an idea of I guess, where Shazam is going to go, but I do think we'll see it sooner rather than later, and most likely probably centered around Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So I'm cool with that. You know, if they have to make Black Adam team up with them in some sense to like take out Mr. Mind, like that could be a pretty cool premise. So all for it. But shout out DC, right?
Yeah. Right in the ship, man. Good for them.
Absolutely. WB. Game of Thrones. Let's do it. Season 8. Man, I am so ready for this. Have you been rewatching it all?
Yep, I've been hitting those YouTube clips. Boy, are most of the scenes on YouTube. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've watched a couple episodes here and there. I've been listening to a couple of binge modes, trying to recap some of it. Shout out Jason and Mal. And shout out Emmy Award nominated Jason.
Of course. Goats.
Damn. Crazy. So Game of Thrones. I mean, first, this has been talked about, and the big conversation is how this is probably the last season of monoculture TV. That there's not going to be a show like Game of Thrones that everybody will have to watch to avoid spoilers. To some extent, I agree with that, and to another extent, I say before Game of Thrones, I think people kind of said like, "Oh, Breaking Bad gonna be the last type of show like this," and I feel like if a show is good enough and it can get big enough, this can definitely happen. Lord of the Rings, if it ends up being what people think it's going to be, I think has a real shot at being this again. But for the foreseeable future and for the predictable future, I think it's fair to say this probably is the last one for what we can actually predict. What do you think?
I think the key here is that the delivery method of television has largely changed. Stranger Things would be one of these shows. It's so popular. It's so big on the internet, multi-generational. The problem is when Netflix blows the whole load with the whole season on the same day, people watch at different paces, websites weigh how to cover something all at once like that. It just doesn't happen. It shows a shorter life. No one's watching at the same time. Amazon also releases shows that way. Will they release Lord of the Rings week to week? I really hope they do. But if they don't, it's really hard to see it reaching that point. So if that's the case, HBO is really the only FX, I guess. I mean, people tune in to watch Atlanta week to week, Killing Eve week to week. But those shows are nowhere near big enough to, get this kind of label. I think it really ultimately depends on Netflix, Apple, Amazon, how they choose to deliver their biggest shows, because those are the shows that will have the opportunity to have enough eyeballs to hold this title. So, gotta wait and see, honestly.
The thing about shows like Atlanta or even Killing Eve is that those stories just are not the size that Game of Thrones is. Like, Martin has created this incredible, expansive, very rich universe that ties in so many different storylines and so many characters that people connect with or care about, which it's hard to do on TV because, unless you have a network like HBO, Amazon, that's really investing, if it's cable TV, you're not getting, a 5-season deal to build the story up. If you don't get this thing off the ground within season one, and I think Game of Thrones, if people had just like, okay, one season, let's see how it goes, wouldn't have even gotten to this point, because I think season one moves a little slow at points. I think people would have checked out, but then you have that huge payoff at the end of the season. You're just like, okay, I'm in. Like, it's fantastic. I don't know. Where does this rank in like your all-time TV shows?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, see, the thing is, I haven't watched a lot of the Pantheon Golden Age shows. I've started a few of them, but I haven't finished The Wire or Mad Men or Deadwood. I'm going to watch Deadwood very soon, honestly, once I finish Veep. But, I haven't seen a lot of these exalted shows, and like a show like The Simpsons, show like MASH, Violence, and those wouldn't really do it for me. So, is Game of Thrones my favorite show ever? Yeah, it might be. It's definitely the show I've invested the most time, brain power into. It's a great question. For me, it's probably Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad are probably the best, and Leftovers, I guess, is certainly right there.
Yeah.
I think it's between those three for me. I hope Watchmen's amazing. We'll see.
Yeah. I have high hopes for Watchmen. Yeah, I think Breaking Bad for me is just a little bit higher. I think there's also some nostalgic factors for me with that, about how like it was just a show that nobody knew about, and then everybody caught up, and then it was literally like you get together to watch it with your buddies.
One of the first true Netflix bumps where Netflix cultivated and maintained a cable audience, for sure.
Yeah, and I really love The Wire. The writing on that show is just out of this world. It would probably Game of Thrones is probably number 3 for me, behind those two. But I mean, those three, it's a Mount Rushmore, and then there's I think The Leftovers, even that is a step below, just in terms of scale of the show, and the fact that it was very up and down in the first season and the second season.
And I also haven't seen Sopranos, so that's another one that's TBD.
Same for me. I haven't seen Sopranos. That would probably be up there from what everybody says. But so this is really a show that is important to the culture. A show that we might never see the size, have the influence that Game of Thrones has had. So we're left here with season 8, the second season where we don't know really what happens because the books haven't been written yet. This is
third season actually.
Oh, is it? I forgot. Yeah. Season 6 was off book 2. That's crazy.
Yeah, the books. Spoilers for where the books end, if you care, I guess. But the books end with John getting yapped in the gut, and Danny's still in Essos. There's a war with the slavers going on. Tommen didn't die. Like the whole Cersei blowing up the Sept, John getting resurrected. All of that hasn't happened in the book. Mm-hmm. So seasons 6, 7, and now 8 are just off the George outline that he gave to Benioff and Weiss, and then whatever Benioff and Weiss decide to do.
So we're really kind of going in, and people I think have a general sense of where things are going. So season 7 left off with,
yep.
We find out that John is a Targaryen. Aegon Targaryen. He's the son of Aegon and Lyanna, which you couldn't give him a different name. Rhaegar, sorry. But anyways. So we got this Targaryen plotline. Now he's boning his aunt, who is Danny. They make this pact. They're going back down to Winterfell. They escape the White Walkers, all that jazz. Meanwhile, the Night King just taking down the wall with his ice dragon that he resurrected from the dead. We got Sansa and Arya in Winterfell. They kill Littlefinger, with Bran. They all kind of team together, the Stark kids, that feel-good story. But John's coming down with Danny. You got Jaime leaving, Cersei, who may or may not be pregnant. There's a lot going on here, man. I guess maybe what storylines what are you most excited for this season?
Well, technically, John and Danny are coming up from King's Landing to the north. They're not coming back down from the wall. Get your geography, your Westeros maps in order, sir. No, the thing about season 8 is that the story, the geographic location, most of the characters were just very condensed. We've never really been in this before, right? Danny and John are together. All of their compatriots are together, right? So soon we're going to, coming with this is a lot of reunions that haven't happened in several seasons, or perhaps the whole length of the show basically are about to happen because everyone's just getting back into the same place for the first time, right? But if you think about the stories, we have Cersei is back in King's Landing, someplace she hasn't left since the very beginning of season 1, and she's there with Qyburn, the mountain. Euron went off. Qyburn. Euron went off to get the Golden Company across the Narrow Sea. We assume Daario will come back with him, right? Yeah. And then other than that, we have the Night King, the White Walkers, the Whites, and Viserion, Ice Dragon, beyond the wall. Tormund and Beric are running towards Winterfell, and in Winterfell, Jon, Dany, Tormund, Brienne, Bran, Arya, Sansa. Jaime's on his way. He'll probably get there soon. Tyrion, all of Dany's people, Davos. Everyone is basically in Winterfell, right? And I'm just really curious to see how we start off the season, because there's a lot of speculation that episode 3 will be the Battle of Winterfell, when Night King and crew do some siege, blast right through the place. Who knows, right? But I'm really curious to see what kind of threads get set, because the appeal of Thrones for years now has always been that palace intrigue, right? And I don't think the season is just going to be one continuous battle. So those whatever remaining threads they have are set up. Probably a lot of it will be from Cersei, but if there's any tension with people at Winterfell, I'm just really curious to see where it goes, because we'll probably get a sense of that story soon, because the battle's on its way. So what about you? What are you thinking for the beginning of the season?
It seems like the first episode has to be Jon and Dany meeting with Sansa, Arya, and Bran, how they work all that out and all those dynamics. And then pretty quickly, Jon's going to have to be there's an ice dragon coming, and we got to figure out how we're going to fight these guys. They're going to have to figure out weapons pretty quickly, so Gendry's going to be working double time get those weapons out. They have to find a lot of Valerian steel or dragon glass somewhere. Yeah,
the dragon glass.
Yeah, that dragon glass gonna be essential. So I think by episode 2 we'll probably get into the battle, and then it's gonna be kind of about I think how things play out from there. And I'm really interested to see, because I think if we're getting the battle that early in the season, it's either going to condense the showdown pretty quickly to just the main characters that they want the story to be about, or it's going to be like part 1 of a larger to come battle later on in the season between the White Walkers, which I can't really imagine the White Walkers retreating. So I have to imagine if they're leaving Winterfell in some sort, then they would be going down to Cersei, which doesn't make sense. So not really sure how it plays out.
Yeah. Just the whole plotting, how Cersei factors in, I think, is really like the X factor of sorts in trying to guess what happens with the plot, because does she send, we don't expect her to send the Golden Company to help, right? We don't expect that to happen. There's no reason to believe Cersei will see the logic for once, right? Now, no way.
Right.
So she's going to send the Golden Company to sabotage the good people, Dany and Jon's crews, or maybe wait for the battle to happen and then go after whoever wins. I just can't see the Golden Company hanging out in King's Landing waiting. Cersei will probably wait. Well, she's still in this the whole time, but I'm just wondering, like, what does Cersei have left to do? You know, besides get killed.
Yeah, but at Jaime's hand, right?
Valancourt, baby.
Do you think she's pregnant? What would your guess be?
So yeah, that's like some of the famous like Vegas props you got. Is Cersei pregnant, and also is Dany pregnant via Jon, of course.
Dany is beyond pregnant,
I think,
bro.
I'm gonna go Dany, yes. Cersei, no. We'll say Cersei lied. I'm trying to think. I think there's Cersei and Jaime. They're supposed to be like around like 40. At least in the book they are. So I don't know. I mean, she's probably not that fertile, right? It's probably not that easy. Especially incest baby. I don't know. I'm gonna say Dany, yes. Cersei, no. But
are we sure it would even be Jaime's though?
Oh, I mean, well, who else would it be? Do we have a name for anyone? It's not Lancel. He's been
no. It would be the God, the guy Euron.
Oh, Euron.
Gotta be.
It's tough to pull off making Euron truly that important right at the end. I don't know about that. I feel like Euron's just kind of a means to an end. Yeah, I'm gonna say no, but Jon and Dany joining up and having a new Targaryen baby feels like everyone's kind of in that boat. But I mean, another thing is obviously in the beginning, Jon needs to be told by Sam and Bran that he is in fact the true heir. He's a legitimate Targaryen from Rhaegar and Lyanna, so he's both ice and fire. He's both Stark and Targaryen. Yada yada. That needs to be established early. But yeah, in terms of his kid, I mean, I feel like what do we care about these unborn babies right now? I mean, we got more important things to worry about, you know. And I feel like that's the attitude. I mean, speaking, and we already got some born kids. We got fucking baby Sam, man, from Gilly. Yeah. Keep that guy alive. We'll worry about the pregnant kids when they're born.
You know, the characters I think I find most interesting are the ones that are maybe the peripheries right now of the main group. You know, Arya, we don't really even understand how her faceless people magic works. I'm really interested to see how that kind of plays into this season. You know, because you have the whole thing where she actually turned into Walder Frey, like voice and everything. But then other times doesn't do that. So I'm really interested to see how that really plays into the season, because Arya just kind of feels like she's just going to be kind of chilling, going to kind of be fighting out there using Needle, but I'm not really sure how she plays into the whole dynamics. She's not going to rule. You know, it's going to be between Sansa and Jon and Dany, that whole struggle there. Bran is also interesting, you know, whether you fall into the Bran the Builder or Bran as the Night King, or there's a lot of different theories out there about Bran, but he also seems like, what is his, you know, role going to be in a lot of this?
Yeah. The thing about Arya in the trailer, and there's only that one real trailer, we don't see a whole lot, but big chunk of it is honestly Arya looks a little bruised, but looks like she has like legitimate fear she's running from something. Perhaps in Winterfell, tough to really say. And trying to think, like, what would cause that in her? Because at the end of the day, she's a fucking stone cold killer. You know? So much so the fact that most of her compatriots don't even know the extent of it. So what it kind of leads into, is there something in the Winterfell crypt? I mean, there's talk that there's a dragon under there that's been heating the springs. I don't think we're going to get that. Maybe it happens in the books. Who knows? The Great Other, I don't know. Or maybe she sees Rhaegar's harp and runs away in terror. Who knows? But the fact that she's like legitimately scared of something, which is very unlike Arya in general, it's definitely something to think about. But obviously, you mentioned Bran. I mean, Bran truly is just the big question mark for what it is, because they've established that he can, as a three-eyed raven, can cross dimensions, go back in time in sorts, right? We know that he fucked up and basically made Hodor into who he was. We also know that when he went and saw the Tower of Joy scene happen, Ned heard him say something in the wind, right? So we know that he can influence the past. And as you mentioned, is like Bran, or all the past Brans, like Bran the Builder, Bran and Stark, was Bran actually influencing that somehow? Was he doing it in a bad way? He make the Mad King go mad? You can take it any way you want. You can talk yourself into basically anything. But figuring out what exactly is going on with Bran and how he is going to influence what the final story is a huge question. I mean, like, one of the big reunions we're going to get, assumingly, because they'll be in the same place, is Jaime and Bran, two people that haven't met since episode 1, when Jaime pushed Bran out a window, right? But Bran, through his character now, will probably be like, that's okay, man. This was supposed to happen. It got me to where I am now, where I can see everything. So,
yep.
Bran, big X factor for sure.
Yeah. Just kind of looking here at some of the characters, I guess maybe this is a good time to talk about who we think will come out of this season and who we think is destined to not make it out. I mean, why don't we just start with the big ones? Dany and Jon. Are they making it out?
Dany lives, Jon dies, is what I'm going with.
Jon wants to die. Like, he just does not want to be alive anyway, so he'll be dead. Yeah. Dany, I think, definitely will. Will she be on the Iron Throne?
I think that's a separate question. We can talk about that after this.
Okay, so we'll put that on pause.
Sansa?
Sansa, I think she makes it out.
Same.
She's a survivor, bro. Like, there's no way she's gonna not make it out. What about Arya?
I'm going dead.
No. Did you see the whole thing with Maisie Williams and Jimmy Fallon?
Oh, I did not.
Oh, there was a April Fool's Day thing where he was interviewing her, and like she's like lets it slip, like, yeah, when Arya dies in episode 2, and then she's like, and it was like a whole like April Fool's Day thing. But I'm wondering if maybe it's not an April Fool's Day thing. We'll see. If Arya dies, I mean, that'd be a tough one, because I feel like she's a big fan favorite for sure.
She is.
Bran, he lives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's an all seeing, all whatever, warging power. Tormund.
Gone is fucking yesterday, bro. He's dead.
What about Brienne though?
So I think there's like a bunch. There's a big group of people that you can pretty confidently write off, and they're of that character weight. So Tormund and Beric, we assume they'll escape the wall, get back to Winterfell, then they'll die. I throw Jorah in that mix. I throw Theon in that mix. Euron in that mix. Jaime and Cersei. I assume they kill each other like the Valancourt theory, but I think they both don't make it. Dario, if he comes back, will die. Melisandre, if she comes back, has like 5 people that want to fucking murder her, right? The Mountain and the Hound, I assume Clegane happens and they kill each other.
You think so?
I think so. Well, at least the Hound kills the Mountain, but I feel like the Hound has been through a lot. He'll finally rest. I really think they both die. Maybe it's Jaime and the Hound go on a murder mission down south. Who knows? But I really think most of these ancillary characters are going to die. I think a few of them will probably survive. Perhaps Davos and Varys. I mean, again, some of these people will live, probably. Bronn, I'd go either way on Bronn. I feel like Bronn's such a popular character. He has a bigger role than he ever had in the books. They keep Bronn. But Brienne, I think Brienne's a great one because that you can see Brienne influencing things with Jaime. And I'm bleeding Brienne dies.
Yeah. I don't think any of those like middle characters have a very good shot of making it out this season. Yeah, I think the interesting thing or the interesting person maybe I didn't hear you mention was Tyrion, because Tyrion really I'm not sure how he factors in other than being just a fun character at this point because he doesn't really have a shot at getting any chance to rule. He's an advisor. And I guess like we'll have to vouch for Jaime, who I don't think will have trouble, getting accepted into fight against the White Walkers anyway, since he's basically coming to do so. Yep. So I'm not really sure what Tyrion does. And as an early season fan favorite, he's kind of been phased out over the last couple of seasons. So I think I could see him getting the axe pretty early on.
Yeah, that's a good question. A good point because as you mentioned, the best Tyrion stuff is in the beginning. When he's in King's Landing, fucking being awesome.
Yep.
Once he became subservient to Dany in a certain extent, he has less influence and thus less to do, less lines, And again, if we think this Battle of Winterfell, at least his first main conflict, happens early, it's not just going to be the fighters that die, we assume, right? Like, again, I threw out Jorah, Tormund, Beric. We assume a lot of those guys probably get killed in that original fight. But could Tyrion get killed there? I mean, I don't know. Tyrion getting killed early, tough. But at the end of the day, he's been on 7+ seasons already. He's been a regular the whole time. I guess you can kill anyone at any time at this point. It's a good point though, because what's Tyrion going to be doing? He's just going to be helping strategize. If there is much strategizing to do, I feel like the true strategy in terms of what they can accomplish will probably come from Bran because he's just going to reveal things to everyone, or Sam to get in the scrolls. I just don't know what Tyrion can do to push the story at this point.
There was the theory, I think, a couple seasons back where Tyrion might have been, a Targaryen, and he was going to ride one of the dragons, and maybe that will happen in the books, but. At this point, if that came out this season, that would be a huge twist that seems unearned in a lot of senses. So I don't really see it happening. And even if it was, I mean, you have to assume Dany and Jon are going to be the ones riding dragons if Jon decides to do that, instead of having Bran just warg into it or whatever happens with that. Well, but go ahead.
Do you think so? Dany rides Drogon, obviously. Mm-hmm. Jon rides Rhaegal. Do you think Bran tries to warg into
the Night Kings?
Ghost Viserion. Ice Viserion.
I mean, that'd
think
be
both happen?
Awesome,
do you think the Bran wargs into one, Jon rides one? Do you think they both happen or just one?
The warging thing is tough just because if you're gonna give the Night King this weapon and then pretty much Bran's just like, nope, I'm gonna take that away. It's like, okay. So maybe this isn't going to be as much of a battle as we thought. So we're going to have 3 dragons just wiping out these. Although I guess the Night King can just take them out with one javelin throw anyway, without even a step. Dude's got like the craziest arm of all time. But him and Judge and Vladimir Guerrero having like a throwing from the outfield like contest, dude. I just want to see it. So I don't know. I just feel like they can't take the Ice Dragon away that quickly as a weapon.
Yeah. I mean, I'm leaning, I think whatever manifestation of Bran's powers, whether it's interdimensional or just warging, and I say just warging, it's just some throwaway thing, but like, I feel like that's not going to happen right away, certainly not in that first conflict. So, I feel like the Night King and Viserion and all his army will wreck plenty of shop before Bran potentially rains on his parade. But, the Night King is a villain that comes in very slowly played, right? Doesn't speak. He's dull in a sense, unclear motivations beyond just turning everyone into a white. But we do know that through Bran's time traveling, he basically allowed the Night King to go through the Three-Eyed Raven's hut beyond the wall with the Children of the Forest, right? whether I don't ascribe to Bran being the Night King, but their connection, whether it's just something in their minds, like whatever that is, you feel it has to come into play somehow, just because we got so much of that. And Bran was a character that felt very ancillary for a lot of the show because, I mean, he literally takes a season off. And then when Isaac hadn't said right comes back to play, I mean, he'd already hit puberty and grow like 6 inches, you know? Yep. But I just don't think they'll fumble the ball with Bran at this point. They definitely thought about it enough to have a plan for him. You can talk yourself into basically anything.
Right. Winterfell has to fall, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's gotta. Because even just looking here, it seems like, there's 6 episodes this season. The first 2 are only an hour, then the last 4 are 80 minutes long. So that means that there's big stuff coming in those episodes. And if the Night King is just going to get like shot down in the second episode, like, nah, I can't see it happening. He's got to at least take that battle and kind of build the climax to the end of the season. Probably the penultimate episode will be the final battle with that. Yeah, so we kind of put it on hold, but what about this throne talk? Is there going to be an Iron Throne at the end, Dave? What do you think?
Yeah, so I've been talking a lot with a friend of the show, Adam Mahalik, and he's thrown out this kind of like United Nations of sorts, independent constituencies, all the different kingdoms, right?
Woodrow Wilson, shout out our guy.
Yeah, well, the League of Nations first, of course. I think we've mentioned that on the pod before, so call back to the deep listeners for sure. That's one option. The other one is just very traditional. I'm going with Jon as fucking as dead as can be, so that it would just be Dany. Does Dany just sit on the throne? Does Dany give in to her Mad Queen tendencies, and does nothing really happen? Is like, or do they truly break the wheel and go no throne? I don't know, man. Just because I know what I like to see, and I also know that what I think the show would do, and I'm kind of leaning towards they don't melt the throne down, and Dany just is at the on the throne at the end. But it'd be really cool if they kind of just branched off and had and the Stormlands, Gendry Baratheon, like in the North, Sansa Stark. It'd be really cool if they had all these different areas truly autonomous. But I'm going to say just Dany at the top.
I could see that, and it would be really interesting if she does, she is the Mad Queen at the end, and it's basically just this whole revolving door of things happening over and over again. That's the whole point of this. You have this epic story that just ends in perpetuation. Although, as you were talking, this kind of played out a theory, because one of the major themes has been the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Right? That's been the whole thing with the Starks, and I wonder if maybe Jon dies in episode, penultimate episode 5. Dany kind of goes a little crazy, that her lover / king is dead. Her baby's father's dead. She's that Mad Queen. Sansa Stark, Arya, and Bran team up together again, take down the Mad Queen, and they rule all together. I mean, that would be that whole pack survives, but lone wolf. That's just that's a crazy theory. I just want to get out there. It doesn't cost me anything, so if I get it right, I'll just call back and say I'm the smartest person in the world.
Right. Yeah. I just don't know if we have enough real estate to introduce the Mad Queen truly and then resolve it like that.
Right.
I just think it's an endpoint only option. But yeah, I feel there's only truly a few options. Jon, Dany, Sansa, Night King, they all die. I don't think Cersei's a real option. Tyrion, no. That's it. There's no one else.
Yeah.
So I think it's really just more the existential questions of if they maintain the monarchy and truly maintain the dynasty with having new Targaryens on the throne again after the Baratheons. Or they truly try and break the wheel and change things. It's Game of Thrones. It's tough to predict something too rosy,
Or does Gendry end up on the throne, the rightful heir to the throne?
Is he the rightful heir, though? Because he is a bastard. He has a good claim. But
Better
I guess he had a
claim
better claim than Joffrey did, because Joffrey literally wasn't his son.
Yeah. Interesting.
Tough question.
Yeah, there's and we'll be talking about it for sure. Any last predictions or anything you want to throw out there for the season?
Theon. I'm going with Theon dies. What about you?
Yeah. Oh, dude, deader than dead.
Kind of thought he was dead last season, to be honest.
I mean, the thing about Theon is that you just keep see these glimpses of him doing these things that are like redeemable. You're like, yes, and then he just like immediately undoes it. And you're like, okay, just go die somewhere, dude. Yep. Yeah. Anything else? I think we're good on that.
I want to shout out this Twitter poll from at Rejects, the Neil who runs One Perfect Shot and filmscorerejects.com, and he tweeted back on the 3rd, so it was like a week-long poll, if you only could choose one, Game of Thrones Season 8 or Avengers Endgame. And currently, with 1 day left in the poll, 65,000 votes, Game of Thrones Season 8 has 67% of the vote. And that is what I voted for.
That's what I would vote for, too. Yeah, Game of Thrones by a mile. Just a quick update as we finish up this episode. While we were recording, it was announced that a Shazam sequel is in the works, with Henry Gayden, the writer, back penning the script. So we will be seeing that Shazam sequel sooner rather than later for sure. Anyways, it's going to wrap it up for us this week. What we got next week, Dave?
So next week is big. Once more. Where are my notes? They're over here. Anderson .Paak, Ventura, new album.
Low.
Right after Oxnard, very, very soon. Curious to see. I mean, so far the singles are much more soulful than Oxnard, so looking forward to that for sure. Just going a little bit further up north in California. Also, Intellectual, this new debut project from Nate Fox and Nico Segal, collaborates with Chance the Rapper. You've certainly heard them on songs before. Also, LSD is dropping their long-awaited album. That's Labyrinth, Sia, and Diplo. They released like half this album as singles already, so you probably know what it's going to sound like. Fosse Verdon premieres on Wednesday. Excited for that on FX. That's Sam Rockwell, Michelle Williams. Won't get nearly as much buzz as Thrones, of course, but still a show you should not be missing out on. And then Hellboy comes out, and we'll see how that does. And hopefully High Life gets into wide release soon. Oh, and BTS is dropping an EP. Lot to consume, like usual.
And we will be consuming it. So hit that subscribe. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and follow us everywhere that you want to listen to us. We'll catch you next week. Game of Thrones!
Kaiba.